Hello, my name is John Penn, and today in this discussion, I'm just going to go a little bit over Division One revenue producing sports and whether they should produce or establish a trust fund for these particular students that are participating in these certain sports. These sports will obviously be men's basketball and football, as they are one of the two sports that has a lot of revenue within their program. So a couple of things to go over as like a rundown. First, you need to know what is a trust fund, and also a student athlete opportunity fund that is pretty much established that the NCAA has that go throughout different conferences. Some of the recommendations for a trust fund, basically just how should it be designed and how should it be formatted within the NCAA, and some of the economic reasonings of why to establish it, and also the downfalls or cons, the past stuff that people have been through, or different cases that people has gone through that is similar to this subject of why should we have a trust fund. So a trust fund, this is, according to Cannon, from the Balance, he describes it as a special type of legal entity that holds property for the benefit of another person, group, or organization. In this case, this is benefiting the athletes, the players, basically from this excess revenue that this program is receiving through these specific sports. So also you have the grantor, which would be the NCAA, which the person who actually establishes the fund, well, I would say that its member institutions, the specific institution that established the fund. So similar to a trust fund, there are two types of funds that the NCAA has that is pretty similar to a trust fund. This is the Special Assistance Fund and the Student Athlete Opportunity Fund. So the the Special Assistance Fund is really a financial needs type of funding that the NCAA gives to conferences. According to Rosner and Shropshire, a total of $13 million is sent to conference offices in early August. This is back in 2008. This is basically just to help students with any financial assistance, whether it be for the family or clothing or everything for day-to-day actual needs, and not like just wants or entertainment systems or anything like that. The Student Athlete Opportunity Fund is a little bigger funding. Shropshire and Rosner also reports that there's a total of just a little bit over $35 million that was sent to Division One conference offices back in 2008 as well. They also have a report just stating exactly what this opportunity fund is. It states that the Student Athlete Opportunity Fund is intended to provide direct benefits to student athletes or their families as determined by conference offices. So basically saying that once they're sent to these offices, the conferences has leeway to distribute or give the different member institutions this funding any way they choose. As a guiding principle, the fund shall be used to assist student athletes in meeting financial needs that arise in conjunction with participation in intercollegiate athletics, enrollment in an academic curriculum, or that recognize academic achievement. Accordingly, receipt of Student Athlete Opportunity Fund monies shall not be included in determining the permissible amount of financial aid that a member institution may award to a student athlete. Further, inasmuch as the fund is designed to provide direct benefits to a student athlete, the fund is not intended to be used to replace any existing budget items. The Student Athlete Opportunity Funds also gives a list of basically permissible uses of the fund that these conferences can use. These conferences and member institutions can use these funds for. This includes summer school, postgraduate scholarship, graduate exam fees, insurance premiums on student athletes, supplement insurance, medical expenses, providing all of these service, clothing allowance, additional student athlete travel to go home and back so people can see their families, emergency travel, and things of that nature. So to this trusting fund, Unlike the other option that I just gave you with the special assistance fund and a student athlete opportunity fund, those two are different fundings where a student must meet certain requirements in order to be eligible for any portion of those funds. Whether in this trust fund, kind of self-explanatory of you can actually trust, it's a more promising and secure way that student athletes will be able to get money eventually for this help revenue that they put in the time and effort for to help these schools and programs and help succeed to not be in the red. As stated before, this trust fund is for schools, sports, I'd say, sports programs that actually are not in the red. They're making significant revenue, and in this trust fund, there could be a portion of this high revenue or profit that these schools are making that to be instilled for these athletes. According to Levine, he has it that those in the Power 5 conferences, which are the conferences that mainly make this huge revenue, pulled in a record of $6 billion last year. This is nearly $4 billion more than any other schools combined. This is in 2016. So it has here from Sports Esquire a good way that I honestly believe as well can be used for a trust fund. So they have it where these schools that are revenue generating can put in a pot for this trust fund yearly for these student athletes. But these students would not get this funds from the trust fund until their completion of their college career, whether it be through graduation, no more eligibility, a total injury, anything. They'll have that in their personal pot and able to receive that once their college career is over. And also in this method, all athletes are seen as equal. For instance, Lonzo Ball, who obviously was one of the huge names for UCLA men's basketball last year, he wouldn't be able to receive more money just because his name. It should be a equal set, no matter who they is, whether it's Lonzo Ball to Billy Bob that's sitting on the bench. They should all should have this certain equality to them, which makes everything fair for these athletes. With that, it raises the question, through this structure, does this meet and comply with any compliance with the NCAA as far as Title IX or anything? And also from this article I read, there is a case that happened before. It's Stanley versus University of Southern California, where the coach was asking to receive more compensation for basically a higher pay as a men's basketball coach, because the men's team generated great annual revenue. So based on this total revenue, the coach wanted to be compensated for his work, his doing, and it did get accepted that based on his revenue that his salary or whatever should be moved up. And this is the same case you can look at for as a student. I know it seems, well, I guess not seems, but it's looked at as far as amateurism, and in they shouldn't be paid at all, which brings up a lot of controversy of this college athletes getting paid in any type of way because of this term of amateurism of college athletics. Then also, speaking of cases, one of the biggest cases that deals with the NCAA was NCAA versus O'Bannon, which dealt with a former player from UCLA who was actually just sitting there playing the game, and he noticed that this collegiate game had a player from the same school using his same features, same character, and realized it was him, even though they didn't use his actual name, and he felt like he didn't give them permission to use this likeliness of his actual character and player that had his same capabilities, left hand and everything. He didn't give them permission to use so he felt like the revenue that they're making off of his likeliness isn't fair because nor did he give them permission. He isn't being compensated for this, nor was any collegiate player, which is why there hasn't been any collegiate NCAA games since for about 5 years now. Within this case, they actually an alternative was presented by the plaintiffs, and it was approved by the judge for a formation of the trust fund. So this trust fund was somewhat what I spoke of earlier, having this pot of money that each student would get added to that pot every year of that they have been eligible of and playing as a student athlete. They have it where it was no less than $5,000 each year for each player, which is a good amount to have as a player, especially for that to add up. They also presented that this is coming from the sharing in revenue from licensing money that comes from their likeliness and exposure, basically, which in the early argument was just to have this money coming from the revenues in general, not specifically from their likeliness or licensing or anything. So as stated before, this view of a trust fund can be a very controversial situation with the NCAA standing on the point that the college athletics should be just seen as an academic, between academics and athletics. They want to remember that academics is first, and being compensated for this tuition, for these fees, should be well on enough. And also, this is looked at, basically this trust fund is looked at as compensation for being a student athlete, which a lot of people don't want to agree with, but I think it can be a real possibility where athletes can be accounted for